Yo, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back. And today you're going to be watching another book review on this book right here, which is Jordan Peterson's 12 Rules for Life. This book was released on January 16th, 2018. The retail price on this one is $25.95 US and $34.95 Canadian. It's also 409 pages. So let's jump into it. So this book, I guess you could say, is my first real book, if you want to call it that. And by real book, I mean this book was very complicated. Jordan Peterson is a psychologist, so it was kind of a given that he would use very big and complex words. And to be honest, I was not really ready for words like this that were in this book. Coming off of reading Gary Vee, because if you do know about Gary Vee, he doesn't really use big words or anything like that. He wasn't really he's not a psychologist, he's not he's a businessman, right? He makes money, whereas Jordan Peterson, he's an actual clinical psychologist. He has clients, and they go to him and they talk to him about whatever problems they have, and whatever issues they're having, whether it be in their marriage or in their life, or whatever the case may be. He spoke about it from an outside perspective, which is kind of a given, because again, he is a psychologist, and he studies the human brain, and he's an actual doctor. His name is Dr. Jordan Peterson. But the thing about this book is that I kind of had issues reading it, and those issues kind of made me not want to read it, but I still finished the book. But there were times when I had to read through pages twice. There were times when I had to read through pages, even 3 times. There were times when I had to read stuff many times because I didn't necessarily harness it in my mind, and I didn't comprehend and understand it, which was, and that's not a fault of his. That's really and truly, that's my fault. But that was why it took me so long to read the book. This book, I actually found a lot of value in this book. Again, it is called 12 Rules for Life. So, it's 12 things that you should do while going through your life, which is what I took from the title and from, going into the book. But, I did find a lot of value in the book. One thing that kind of stood out to me, or that actually really stood out to me in the book, was the importance of say you're giving a talk. Say it's you talking to 200 people in an auditorium, or whatever the case may be. And he said that when you shouldn't be talking to the audience, you should be talking to one individual person in the crowd, right? So say I had 200 people in front of me, and I look and there's a guy in a red shirt. I would be talking to the guy in the red shirt. Or you see a girl in a green shirt, and you would be talking to the girl in the green shirt. And then after a little while, you switch to the next person, and you switch to the next person. And he said that it keeps you engaged, but it also keeps the audience engaged too. Because it's not like you're just looking straight ahead, like how I am right now, into the camera, right? You're making eye contact with somebody and you're talking to them. You're making eye contact with another person and you're talking to them. So, that was one thing that I actually found I don't know why, but it actually stuck with me in the book. Another thing that he talks about in the book is being precise with your aim. And, when I first read that, I didn't really understand, what it meant. I was like, okay, be precise with your aim. Well, what does that mean, right? And basically what he was saying is that, don't just say that you want to change the world, right? You want to be able to say how you're going to change the world, right? Elon Musk probably said in his head that he wanted to change the world, but he said, he probably told himself that I'm going to change the world by revolutionizing electric cars, or the electric car market, or I'm going to change the world by revolutionizing the space industry, the aerospace industry. And they just launched a rocket, yesterday, which would have been Saturday. So you have to be precise with things that you want to do, right? If you want to make, say for example, more money, then you have to say how you're gonna make more money, right? If you want to have, a cleaner house, for example, right? You wanna tell yourself, or you wanna come up with a plan that says how you're going to have a cleaner house. You wanna have a path to it, right? And he's a very big fan of paths and having a direct plan, which I actually kind of like, because I try to do the same thing. The one thing that I like about this book is that for every chapter, for every rule, if you want to call it that, there's very sufficient backup statements and like proof, if you want to call it that. Like there's a lot of supporting ideas to support the opening statement, if that makes sense, right? So the first rule in the book is you stand up straight with your shoulders back, right? And he says to do that because it's good for your posture, right? Because you should be doing that regardless. And two, it gives you a sort of a confidence, right? Because if you're slumped over like this, then you're kind of reserved. You're kind of timid and stuff like that. But if you're if you're sitting up like this right now, all of a sudden you're more open to people approaching you. People won't look at you like, if there's a guy slumped over like this, people aren't really going to want to approach him. They're going to be kind of hesitant too. But when you're like this, you're more open to conversation. You're more open to people approaching you, and it's better for your posture. And so he has a lot of supporting arguments for all of the 12 rules in the book, which is one thing that I actually really like. So it's like, he doesn't just tell you should stand up straight with your shoulders back and that's it, right? And then he would give you like a real world situation where he encountered that thing. So if there was a time when he wasn't standing up straight with his shoulders back, and how it affected him, and then when he did and how that affected him. So when he wasn't doing it and how it affected him negatively, and then when he did do said rule and how it affected him positively. One thing that I also really like about this book is that he says learn to confront your fears, and for this section of the video I'm actually going to read directly from the book. So what he says in the book, it says, "You might hear in the forest but cannot see what might be a tiger. It might even be a conspiracy of tigers, each hungrier and more vicious than the other, led by a crocodile. But it might not be too. If you turn and look, perhaps you'll see that it's just a squirrel. Something is out there in the woods, you know that with certainty. But often it's only a squirrel. If you refuse to look, however, then it's a dragon, and you're no knight. You're a mouse confronting a lion, a rabbit paralyzed by the gaze of a wolf. And I'm not saying that it's always a squirrel. Often it's something truly terrible. But even what is terrible in actuality often pales in significance compared to what is terrible in imagination. And often what cannot be confronted because of its horror in imagination can in fact be confronted when reduced to its still admittedly terrible actuality," right? So basically what he's saying in the book is that, you should confront your fear, or something that you think is your fear, because it could be something that you're not afraid of, if that makes sense, right? It's just like with the forest scenario, right? If you hear a twig crack in the forest behind you and you don't look, it could be a person, coming up to kill you or something, right? But if you look, then you can see, oh, it's just a squirrel. And even if you do look and it's a person coming up to kill you, then you adapt to the situation, and then you go from there. But if you don't look, it'll always be a person coming up to kill you. Another little section that I wanted to read in the book was this one right here. "You must determine where you are going in your life, because you cannot get there unless you move in that direction. Random wandering will not move you forward. It will instead disappoint and frustrate you and make you anxious and unhappy and hard to get along with, and then resentful, and then vengeful, and then worse. Say what you mean so that you can find out what you mean. Act out what you say so you can find out what happens. Then pay attention. Note your errors, articulate them, strive to collect them. This is how you discover the meaning of your life. That will protect you from the tragedy of your life. How could it be otherwise? Confront the chaos of being. Take aim against a sea of troubles. Specify your destination and chart your course. Admit what you want. Tell those around you who you are. Narrow and gaze attentively and move forward forthrightly. Be precise in your speech. So, that's kind of the thing where he was saying, when you could be precise with your speech, you could be precise with your aim, because if you don't have a direction, then you're just going to wander, and then your life is just going to pass you by, and then that's it, and you're not going to accomplish anything, and then you're going to be full with regrets at the end of your life. So that's basically what he's trying to say, is that you have to have a plan, and having a plan is the best way to achieve something. It's the most efficient way, and it's the best way, because then when you start putting that plan into motion, you start hitting milestones, right? And then when you hit milestones, you keep going until you eventually reach your goal. So to summarize, this book for me, it was a very good read. Like I said, it was just that it was kind of complicated for me, which is why it took me so long to read. But other than that, after if you can get past like the big words and stuff like that, if you have the patience to read stuff 2 or 3 times, then you'll definitely like this book. I did get a lot of value out of this book. The one thing that I do wish is that for me personally, this book kind of talked too much about God, right? And the Bible and whatever, because Jordan Peterson, I'm pretty sure he's Catholic, but he doesn't preach Catholicism in the book. He doesn't say you have to be a Catholic, but he relates a lot of things, like a lot of the rules, they get supported by things from the Bible, which I could have done without. I would much rather like a real world comparison, other than stuff from the Bible. But other than that, like, I didn't have any problems with the book, and I'm not saying that like I'm anti-Christian or I'm anti-Catholic or anything like that. It's just I could have done without it. I just didn't really think it was needed, but other than that, like I said, I had no problem with it. Final rating on this one is going to be a solid 9 out of 10, just because Jordan Peterson, he's helped me a lot in ways like about thinking, about psychology, about plans. And if you don't know who Jordan Peterson is, look up a couple of his videos on YouTube. He posts a lot of his lectures on there because he's actually a psychologist, and I'm pretty sure he teaches at the University of Toronto or something like that. And he posts his lectures on YouTube. You can listen and whatever. But he's very well spoken. He's very articulate, and the book definitely reflects who he is. But yeah, like I said, final rating is going to be a 9 out of 10. And he is writing another book, so I definitely look forward to that one. Other than that, that's going to be pretty much it for the video. As always, thank you for taking the time out of your day to watch my video. It's very much appreciated. All relevant links are down below. Other than that, I'm not too sure which book I'm going to be reading next. I have these 2 books right here, The Little Book of Financial Wisdom, and of course Shoe Dog by Phil Knight. Apparently this one's supposed to be a really good one, so I might save this for last, and then I might, this is only like probably 100 pages or something like that, so might knock this out within the next week. But yeah, we'll see. But like I said, that's pretty much it. As always, thank you for taking the time out of your day to watch my video. It is very much appreciated. All relevant links are down below. Thank you for watching, and I'll talk to you next one. I have this book